Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. I am here to do my Friday reads, which I always film on a Friday, post on a Saturday. You can see Guinness is getting himself settled in a chair right behind me. I almost missed this Friday reads because today was a wild work day. I had a lot to do. I was on the phone way more than usual. I finished 2 books this week. I'm really excited to talk about both of them. I'm going to bring up a book from last week because I didn't talk too much about it. I was not feeling well in last week's Friday reads. Thank you for all of the kind comments. I am feeling much better this week. I still have a bit of, a lingering cough from the sinus stuff, but it is not pandemic related, so that is good news. And it's funny, every time you feel even remotely sick, you start to panic in the current climate. It's just the way things are, but I'm glad it is not pandemic related. Everything is fine there. So thank you for the well wishes again. I am feeling much better, but the work week was pretty busy again, so I only got one other video posted, and that was my book haul for August. And I will put that down below. I'm really excited about all of the books that were in that. So if you'd like to check it out, and if you haven't already, I will put a link to it in the description box down below. I do want to mention a fun video that I saw from middle of the book march about women's fiction and stereotypes. Basically, she set a challenge for herself to read a bunch of stereotypically women's fiction books to see if she liked them or got along with them, and the results were not great. So I will link that video down below because I really enjoyed watching that video. I enjoy a lot of middle of the book marches videos, so hopefully you would as well. A good channel to discover, and I thought that was a really great fun video. So please check it out through the link in the description box down below. Let's get to the question for this week. It's a bit of a long one, and I am going to identify the person as Sandy because I don't know how to pronounce their username. They were kind enough to explain that their username is the initials of the cats that they've had over the years, which I did not know. And thank you for the question, Sandy. The question is, I've heard you mention a few times that you had enjoyed a particular book in the past, but were not sure how you would feel about it today, whether it might be problematic. I guess my question is how you think you would feel if a past favorite did turn out to be problematic in today's culture. Can or would you cut off your love for it? I'm not sure I have a book example of this for me, but I do have a few movie examples. I think of movies by Hitchcock, which I will always love, and I will always consider him one of my favorite directors. But the man was terrible to actresses he worked with. I still consider The Usual Suspects and LA Confidential among my favorite films, but Kevin Spacey, Yes, I do know, and I know exactly how you feel. I guess I do have a book example with slaves included in historical romances I used to read years ago. I still love all these things, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Thoughts? I think, for me, a lot of it's kind of case dependent. I don't like Woody Allen. I don't really watch Woody Allen movies at all. I wouldn't read his autobiography, but to me, Woody Allen is a really specific case because Woody Allen really writes himself into his work, and a lot of his movies are really inspired by his life, and you can feel his fingerprint all over those movies. So, especially since a lot of the time it is somebody who is enamored of a younger woman and things like that. So, for him, I would find it extremely difficult to separate the artist from the art, as people love to say. And I think it's fine to do that to a degree because, I do enjoy Hitchcock movies. That's a great example. But I think it's important to, as you say, no, he was not really a great guy. He treated his actresses very badly. There were a lot of complaints against him that could have gotten him in trouble if he was working today. Stanley Kubrick is another one. I love the movie The Shining, but it is difficult to watch that movie knowing what he did to Shelley Duvall and the way in which he brought her to the brink of madness in order to get a performance out of her. And that makes it a little bit tough. But I think if you know a lot of these things and acknowledge a lot of these things and talk about these things, it's not bad to still enjoy the thing. Part of my whole thing with Gone with the Wind is that it's okay to love Gone with the Wind. If you grew up loving Gone with the Wind, the book or the movie or both, that's fine. I think we just need to be able to acknowledge the fact that there is a lot of racism in Gone with the Wind. And if we can't have that conversation, there's a problem. So it's fine to love Gone with the Wind. It's fine to enjoy it. It's fine to watch the movie. But you have to acknowledge what it stands for in the problematic areas. It's not just a great romance. It's not just a great story. There's a lot of really problematic stuff in there. And I feel like that needs to be acknowledged in a lot of ways. So how I am able to do that depends on the book or the movie and the person involved. I have a difficult time separating Woody Allen from his movies or anything like that, so I wouldn't really be able to enjoy it. I have talked about how The Catcher in the Rye is probably still my favorite book because I read it when I was a teenager and it was kind of perfectly primed for that time in my life. But reading it since then, I don't identify with it as much, and I can acknowledge all the ways in which Holden is wrong, but I still enjoy it. So I think if you're able to interrogate and do all of the questioning and all of that stuff, you can still enjoy it. You can still talk about these things and engage with them. I don't think we should just erase things like Gone with the Wind from existence at all. Even there are authors I don't talk about on my channel. It's fine if you read them. I don't want to support them. And if you follow along, you know exactly which authors I'm talking about. I just don't like giving my own oxygen to them. I'm not going to read their books. I'm not going to support them. And I would rather not support them on my channel. Bookstores are allowed to sell them. Libraries are allowed to carry them. You are allowed to have them. But again, I would hope that if you do, you acknowledge the problematic things about that author and maybe have bigger conversations about that with yourself and your family or your children if you read these books with them. That to me is really the question. A book that I talk about potentially being problematic on a reread is Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. I read it when it was first published, and I feel like in the 15 years since it was published, our understanding of gender fluidity, gender nonconformity, and things like that have really changed a lot. Even to the point where when the book was released, the term hermaphrodite was still really used. Nowadays, we really use the term intersex much more frequently. So a lot of understanding has shifted. Maybe the book doesn't necessarily do anything problematic, but maybe the way we talk about and understand these things has changed, and that might not necessarily be Jeffrey Eugenides' fault. So that is why I feel like I would need to reread that book, because that one could be problematic by accident. And I do think Jeffrey Eugenides had very good intentions in writing Middlesex. I don't think he was trying to exploit anyone or denigrate anyone. In that instance, you can look at the book as a product of its time because Jeffrey Eugenides didn't have malicious intent. Margaret Mitchell did have malicious intent with Gone with the Wind. So I don't know if that helps at all. I feel like it's a spectrum. It depends on the author intent. It depends on the author and the scale of what they're doing. And if there is a bit of remove from what they did and the final result. The Usual Suspects is not Kevin Spacey's movie. It's a great performance in a great movie, but I feel like I could watch it and still appreciate the movie. I haven't seen it in 15 years. So who knows? I might not like that movie if I rewatched it now anyway. But I feel like you can still watch that movie. I Was Seven is a movie we watched last year around Halloween. And I'm not going to not watch it because Kevin Spacey is in it. But yeah, it's a whole spectrum. I don't have a hard and fast rule. It's more like evaluating on a case-by-case basis what I'm comfortable with. And I don't think my rules are necessarily applicable to somebody else. You need to make up your own mind about these things. I am somebody who really thinks that it's okay for people to have different opinions about works of art, works of fiction, and things like that. And talking about them is one of the things that makes those things particularly interesting. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you would agree. So without further ado, I'm going to move into the Friday Reads portion because I have a rant and a rave and some other things to talk about, and I want to make sure I have time for those, and I'm already running to about the 10-minute mark. Now, last week I talked about The Wonder Boy of Whistle Stop. This is going to be my rant. And I didn't want to talk about it too much because I wasn't feeling well, didn't want to spend a lot of time on it, but also because a lot of the things that I didn't like about the book deal with the second half and developments that happen in it, and a little bit about the ending. If you are interested in reading The Wonder Boy of Whistle Stop, skip ahead to the Rave. If I think of it, I will put a timestamp down below so you will know when to skip to if you would like to avoid spoilers. I don't think there's really anything about The Wonder Boy of Whistle Stop that is all that secret, but I want to give you the leeway, if you want to read it, not to have anything spoiled for you. So the premise of the book is that it follows Buddy, who is the son of Ruthie from Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. I love Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, by the way. It's a fantastic book. And I mentioned this in my last Friday Reads video, that one of the things I like about Fried Green Tomatoes is that it's really about the passage of time and how things sort of start to fade away. It captures that sense in a way that a lot of books and authors don't. And I really appreciated that. And it seems like The Wonder Boy of Whistle Stop is going to be doing the same thing when it starts, because Buddy is now, it quickly gets to the point where Buddy is an old man. He has a daughter that he names after his mother, Ruthie. So please know, if I talk about a Ruthie, odds are I'm talking about the daughter, not the mother from Fried Green Tomatoes. And it gets to the point where even Ruthie is kind of old. So you get to the sense of Whistle Stop is a town that kind of dies over time. And when the Wonder Boy at Whistle Stop picks up, the town doesn't really exist anymore. So you get the sense that this stuff is dying away. It's going to be forgotten, because when Buddy dies, there aren't going to be many people who remember Whistle Stop in the first place, and then eventually Ruthie will die. So there will be even less people who remember Whistle Stop and the people of it. So you have this really sad sense of time moving on and things becoming lost. And it's very poignant. But then in the second half of the book, it really changes, and it becomes about reclaiming the past in a way that feels extremely cheesy and feels like wild fan service, and to me does not work at all. To the point where Evelyn Couch, who was also a character from Fried Green Tomatoes, she was played by Kathy Bates in the movie, if that's all you're familiar with, she turns up again, and she's done really well since Fried Green Tomatoes. Her, I can't remember if it was Mary Kay or Avon, but whatever makeup business she was doing, she did so well that she had a car, she was wildly rich, and then she retired, but somehow gets pulled into being a used car salesperson or a car salesperson, and eventually owns the dealership. And she makes so much money that she's wildly rich, and she comes into the plot and reconnects with Ruthie and Buddy because she's heard about Buddy from her friend Iggy, or Ninny's stories. So spoiler, at the end of Fried Green Tomatoes, the movie, it turns out that Ninny, who's been telling Evelyn the stories, is actually Iggy. That does not happen in the book. Iggy and Ninny are always separate people in the book, which kind of confuses me. So I think of Ninny as Iggy because of the movie. But anyway, Evelyn decides to rebuild Whistle Stop. Like literally rebuild the town. She's going to spend all of her money on it. Never mind that this would take an insane amount of money. She doesn't have investors. She's just doing it on her own. Did she really make that much money selling makeup? And then with a used car dealership, she doesn't live cheaply. So how does she have enough money to spend millions of dollars to build a town that is historically accurate, but also updated for a modern audience? Because she wants to sort of rebuild it as a suburb of Atlanta. And that's how the town sort of takes off again, and Whistle Stop becomes a thing again. And it's just so silly at a point. And of course, Buddy is really excited because he's going to get to move back to his town. Ruthie, who had never really been to Whistle Stop, gets to reconnect with her father's history, and she doesn't really have a place of her own, so of course she's going to live there. But what really makes it cheesy is that all of the remaining people come back, and I can kind of see that. But some people, like the second generation, who have, like Ruthie, have no connection to it, but their parent has been long gone, they also come back. And it starts to really strain belief. It's wild that so many people would be coming back, like daughters and grandchildren of people who had been in Whistle Stop, just uproot their lives and come to Whistle Stop, and it doesn't make sense at all that they would just do this. And of course, there's I'm forgetting the name of the hairdresser from Fried Green Tomatoes, but her daughter or granddaughter is also a hairdresser and decides to move back to Whistle Stop to open a beauty parlor. So it's just, everything is recreated to the smallest level. And then one of the things that really also made me nuts about this is Ruthie has a very angry, borderline, like there's a Cold War going on between her and her mother-in-law. They don't get along. They don't like each other. Her mother-in-law is this extremely proper Atlanta society woman who is only concerned with that and appearances and not about anything else. And she's mean to Ruthie for the whole time that she and her son are married, and even after the son dies, or Ruthie's husband dies, she's just mean to her. And at a certain point, she discovers she doesn't have any more money because when her husband died, he didn't really leave her with anything. So she's out of money, and she's so humiliated that rather than move into the nursing home that she has this weird stake in because she gets Buddy put in there, rather than move into there, she decides to quit Atlanta society altogether and move to Whistle Stop. And this is supposed to be a happy ending. There's no reconciliation between her and Ruthie. They don't come to any understanding, and yet you're supposed to feel like this is a happy ending. Even she's going to come to Whistle Stop. And it's like, no, this is the weirdest sort of fan service. The more I think about it, the less I like the Wonder Boy of Whistle Stop. And I'll leave it there. That's my rant. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let's get to the rave. So the first book that I finished this week, by the way, I am wearing my Montana Book Company t-shirt for my video this week because this is something that was recommended to me by Chelsea from the Montana Book Company. She is one of the co-owners. We were having a conversation. I can't remember how we got onto the topic. I think we talked about The Great Believers, something like that. And she recommended Like a Love Story by Abdi Nazemian. And I purchased it, and I finally got around to reading it. I mentioned that I was really liking it in my Friday Reads video last week, but because of the experience with the second half of The Wonder Boy of Whistle Stop, I was hesitant to really talk too effusively. Well, I finished it. I love this book so much. It is absolutely going to be one of my favorite reads of the year. My husband read it when I was, I think, halfway through. He picked it up as well, and he finished it the day after I did, and I think it is his favorite read of the year so far. So Chelsea, thank you. You done good. This is the story of three teenagers growing up in 1989 New York City at the height of the AIDS epidemic. Two of them are gay, one of them is a straight girl, and there's a bit of a romantic triangle for the first half of the book. So one of the things that I really like about this book is that I identify with it so hard, and I identify with the character of Reza the most. So to go over the characters, Judy is the straight girl. She is this fun, a little bit eccentric, wants to be a fashion designer girl. Her best friend is Art, who is really rebellious. He's involved in ACT UP. He is out and proud and just kind of angry at the world because he feels like he recognizes that people are ignoring the AIDS epidemic and people are dying who don't need to die, and he has to be worried about his future. Reza moves to New York City from Canada. He was born in Iran, and his family survived the revolution. His father had died, and then his mother took him and his sister to Canada, where they lived, and now they are in New York City. He is gay, but he comes from this conservative Iranian family. And like I said, he is the character, even though we don't come from the same background, he's the one I really identify with the most because he's so afraid of being gay. He is so afraid of AIDS. Art has had time to get introduced to a lot of these things and get used to them. Reza is really scared. So these three characters are about a decade older than I was in 1989. In 1989, I turned 7. They are juniors or seniors in high school. So there's roughly 10 years of difference in age. But 2 years later, when I was 9, I met someone for the first time who was HIV positive, or openly HIV positive, I should say. The same day, I met the first openly gay person that I had ever met. So that really set me on this journey, because then a year after that, when I was 10, my father came out of the closet after my parents divorced. And when he came out, I recognized myself and realized that I am gay. And I was so afraid of being gay because, I mean, think about it. I was literally introduced to a gay person and AIDS the same day at 9 years old. And I was terrified because I was worried that I can't be gay. If I'm gay, I'm gonna die, and that's not good. So that was scary, especially since my father started dating around that same time. And he came out of the closet in 1991 or 1992, probably more like 1992. So there were already treatments in place by that point, but still, a lot of the people that he knew around the time he came out died within the first few years of him coming out. And he had to really think about that a lot while he was dating. And I saw that and it was scary. So it really inhibited me and made me afraid of who I am, and made it take a long time for me to come out and come to terms with all of those things. And Reza really struggles with those because he's interested in art. Art is interested in him. Judy's interested in Reza. That's the romantic triangle. So he has to sort of come to terms with that. But also he's struggling because he really wants to have a family. He sees the way in which his family was sort of messed up and he wants to do better. I had the exact same thing. And to me, at that time period, not far away from 1989, part of what made it really difficult for me to acknowledge who I am and to come out of the closet was that I wanted a family. And being gay felt like it would make that impossible to have. So I felt like if I acknowledged that I was gay, I was never going to get what I wanted out of life. Fast forward to today, I'm married, we have a foster son, everything turned out okay, but I'm stuck in this limbo period where I'm not really of the generation that confronted AIDS head on, but I'm not the generation that grew up with the march toward acceptance. I was in that weird in-between decade where I'm not really one or the other. So I really identified with this book a lot. It's also just a really great book. I feel like it's a great snapshot. When I read the book Camp by Elsie Rosen, it mentions that you should know the history of who you are. And it feels like there are a lot of people who don't know this kind of story. And I really hope more people discover it because I just love it. I think it's really fantastic. The characters are really great. Judy has an Uncle Stephen who is her mother's brother. So however old that would make him. He is dying of AIDS, and they all have to deal with that. And it's just a beautiful book, a sad book. It did make me cry. I love it. I feel like I'm not even being articulate about what I love about this book so much, but it's so smart. The characters are so real and so well drawn, and the things that they go through feel very real as well. I definitely want to read more books by Abdi Nazemian. I loved this book a lot, in case you can't tell. So I would absolutely recommend picking this up. I think I even liked it better than The Great Believers, which is the book that Chelsea and I think that's the book that we talked about that sparked the conversation that led to this. And then I told her about the TV show It's a Sin, which she and Charlie, who was the other co-owner of Montana Book Company, watched. And by the way, absolutely, the two of them would go hand in hand. So if you read and enjoy this, watch It's a Sin on HBO Max in the United States. Or if you have watched It's a Sin, try this. Maybe not right away. Give yourself a little bit of space. So I finished this week, and I just loved it. It will absolutely be one of my favorite reads of the year when we get to the end. I updated my list, and it's definitely in the top 5. I won't tell you where I put it for now. It's hard to, because when you're on a high with a book, you need to give yourself a little bit of time and distance. So it's not my number 1, but it's in the top 5. We'll see how this shakes out when I get a little bit further from the experience of having read it. So after I read that, and because I've been stressing myself out with Gone with the Wind, I should say right now, since I mentioned it, I did not make any progress with Gone with the Wind this week. I had other things going on. Work was busy. I was really into like a love story. I was kind of reeling from the more I thought about that negative experience of The Wonder Boy of Whistle Stop. And I started my buddy read of Love Medicine with Britta Bowler. So I didn't make any progress in this. I'll try to get back to it a little bit this weekend once I'm done with the section for my check-in. But so with all of that going on, and because Like a Love Story did make me cry, I felt like I needed something really easy, really happy, a little bit of a gimme. So I went through Scribd and found a holiday romance book called Better Not Pout by Annabeth Albert. Now, you should know this about me. I love holiday romances. I really discovered them this past year with my husband, and we watched a bunch of them all through December. And then once the holidays were over, we kind of went into a lull, but we didn't really watch them. But then in July, for whatever reason, we started watching them again. So periodically, we just watch a holiday romance, and it's lovely. So this is a gay one, and it was lovely. It is, Annabeth Albert does write the kind of ones that have, you know, intimate sex scenes. So if that's not your thing, stay away. To me, it's funny. They're fine, but I could take it or leave it. It's really just the actual love story that I'm there for, and it's cute enough. It goes in a little bit hard, making one of the two protagonists unlikable in the beginning because one of them has to be kind of grinchy, and it goes in a little too hard. And I listened to it on audio, and the person who narrates does a great job doing the voice of that character, who is a Marine, I believe. He's in the military. He does a great job with that person's voice. But in order to differentiate the other guy, he always talks in a really high-pitched voice when he does the other guy's voice. And I didn't like that. It's like when a man tries to do a woman voice when they're doing an audio. It just didn't work for me. But the book was cute. It was fine. There's not really much else to say about it. It fit exactly what I needed at that point in time. And that's all I wanted, all I needed. It fit the bill. And that happened to be the 50th book that I finished in 2021. So I met my reading challenge goal. It's always good to set achievable goals for yourself so you can feel good when you hit them. So I knew I was going to read more than 50 books this year, but I set my reading goal at 50. So this is the book that got me there, for better or for worse. So in other things that are going on, once I finished that, I did pick up The Tuscan Child by Rhys Bowen again because I was halfway through in July, and then I put it down, and I figured I might as well just get back to it. And I've been paying better attention, but I'm sort of catching up. I didn't start over. I didn't want to start over. So I feel like I missed a lot of things because I was having trouble paying attention to it in the beginning. I just had audiobook burnout at that time. I keep trying to figure out what's happening, and my husband has read this, so I keep asking him questions, and he won't tell me the answers, which is very annoying, but he's not wrong to do that. So I am going to finish this probably this weekend. I don't have that much left, and we'll see. It's a weird experience because the first half of the book, I wasn't paying very good attention to it. So we'll see where I net out on it. And then I am doing my buddy read of Love Medicine with Britta Bowler. This is by Louise Erdrich. I'm really enjoying this book so far. It feels like there's not a whole lot to talk about yet. We're doing roughly 60 to 70 pages per week, and I am about halfway through the point where we are reading for this week, and we check in on Sunday. So I am working on this. Don't have too much to say about it yet. I will have plenty to say to Britta when we do our check-in this week. So more to report on that next week. This weekend, or the next few days in August, are going to be a little bit crucial in trying to see what I can get done for those. So we'll see how all of this goes. Keep your fingers crossed for me. I think that's about everything. I got my rant, I got my rave, I talked about problematic things, and I would love to hear what you think about any of the stuff that I've talked about in this Friday Reads video. Please put it in the comment section down below. I really love the comments. I fell behind a little bit again with last week's Friday Reads, so please know I really appreciate it when you leave comments, and I'm going to try to be better about responding in a timely manner. I've been good about the book haul, but I didn't do well with last week's Friday Reads. But basically, after last week's Friday Reads, I went and slept for the whole weekend. And it was glorious because it's exactly what I needed. So anyway, let me know what you've been up to this week in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about any of the things that I have talked about in the comment section down below. If you have read anything other than Like a Love Story by Abdi and Nazemian, the book that they advertise in the back is called The Authentics. So if you've read anything else by him, please let me know what you thought, because I definitely want to do another one of his books. And you know what to do. Put all of that in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time. I've talked for about a half hour, so if you've made it to this point, thank you for that. If you leave a comment, thank you for that. If you just watch and don't leave a comment, that is appreciated as well. So I will be back. Next week, we'll have my August reading wrap up and at least one other video I'm going to try to do before I do my Friday Reads next week as well. So I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.